Okay, so we are going to be doing the notes for section 3, which is looking at England as an emerging kingdom during this time period. So when you're doing your notes, I would suggest playing this video and typing into your Pages document and then kind of flipping back and forth to look at the pictures and see some of the visuals that I have for you. And I'll also play a few video clips for you to help kind of illustrate some of these points. So you'll want to watch those as well. So we're going to start with our first essential question, which is looking at William the Conqueror and his impact on England's history. So the first bullet, let's start with the date, which is 1066. And this event is called the Battle of Hastings, which is up at the top of the screen there. So I'd write 1066 Battle of Hastings, and then another dash, and we're going to write William of Normandy. His name's down there at the bottom of the screen for you. William of Normandy. And Normandy is located in modern day France. So in parentheses, I would write France. And then we're going to write after that, lands on the coast of England. Lands on the coast of England with his army and defeats King Harold. And defeats King Harold. And Harold is Harold. And then in parentheses, we want to note that King Harold was the Anglo-Saxon king. The Anglo-Saxon king. So basically, William of Normandy was a ruler from France, and he comes across the English Channel. If you're looking down at the little map there, you can see the blue path that he took coming across, and he lands there in Hastings, and basically they battle for power, and they chase after King Harold and continue to battle with him, and eventually are able to defeat King Harold. And so because of that defeat, William now becomes the King of England. So the next bullet, we want to write, William becomes King of England. William becomes King of England, semicolon. And we're going to write, he was nicknamed William the Conqueror. He was nicknamed William the Conqueror. And that's on the screen for you if you need a spell check. So William now takes over England. And this is going to be a very important turning point in the history for England. And many consider this the official founding of England as we know it today. Like, this is the starting point for it as a nation. And this is an important artifact that we have from this time period called the Bayeux Tapestry. And this is actually a long piece of cloth that is embroidered with kind of the recreation of the events of the Battle of Hastings. So it's actually a cloth that tells the story of what happened. And it's considered one of the most valuable and interesting pieces of artwork from this time period. It was displayed in France for a very long time as an official piece, both at the Louvre and some other very important museums within Paris. So this is kind of the illustration of what happened there, and a significant primary source from this time to kind of capture what was happening and what this time period uh, looked like. So a very cool piece of art that's remaining. And so to help you remember this event and its significance, I'm going to play a little video for you. And this is a great company from England that they put these videos together. And I love how they illustrate what happens. So I'm going to play this for you.
Back in 1066, yeah. Edward the Confessor, he had no kids, yeah. The English throne became a huge conflict, yeah. Till Harold took it, the Earl of Wessex, yeah. Battle of Hastings. Tapestry, it's length in meters, measure 70. Embroidered linen tells a story of feats of William, Duke of Normandy. Battle of Hastings. So girl, Norman invasion. By feudalism. Norman invasion. By feudalism. Norman invasion. By feudalism. Norman invasion. By feudalism. Commission by commission. Norman invasion. 1066. 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 The Normans would fight back. Yeah. William the Conqueror led the attack. Yeah. King Harold died in battle, that's a fact. Yeah. The loyal barons signed a feudal pact. Yeah. Battle of Hastings. Tapestry. Its length in meters, measure 70. Embroidered linen tells a story of feats of William, Duke of Normandy. Norman invasion. By feudalism. Norman invasion. By feudalism. Norman invasion. By feudalism. Norman invasion. By feudalism. Norman invasion. 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 Vous êtes feliz? Oui. Vous êtes feliz? Mais oui. That year on Christmas Day, yeah. William was coronated, he would reign, yeah. 21 years playing the feudal game, yeah. He made a tax record because I'm saying, yeah. William the Conqueror, so girl. Norman invasion, by feudalism. Norman invasion, by feudalism. Norman invasion, by feudalism. Norman invasion, by feudalism. Norman invasion, Norman invasion. Norman invasion, Norman invasion. Norman invasion, Norman invasion. Norman invasion. Vous êtes feliz? Oui. Vous êtes feliz? Oui. Vous êtes feliz? Oui. Vous êtes feliz?
All right, so that is from a company called All Histories. They're British and they make videos like that, and I like them because they're catchy. Like, you will remember the date 1066, Norman invasion, and that'll stick in your head. So that's good. That's what we want. So, like we said, Battle of Hastings, also referred to sometimes as the Norman invasion, like Normandy. Um, and this event is very important and significant in England's history. And so let's talk about why, the contributions that this made to their story and their legacy. So the first thing that occurred was, now that we had this past of Anglo-Saxon people and William comes over from France, we see those two languages blend together and they will create the modern day English language. And so that's very significant because without that, we wouldn't be speaking the language that we speak today, which is American English. So let's write that down as our third bullet. So we want to write Anglo-Saxon and French languages, Anglo-Saxon and French languages blend to create the English language. Blend to create the English language. So that's very significant because that means that now we are speaking the language that was kind of created from a blend of these two cultures, over 1,000 years ago. And then the other important change that William makes is he tries to come up with a way to tax people and regulate that tax a little bit better. And so he creates what we call the Domesday Book. And so this is on your screen if you want to look at that and write that down. Domesday Book. You might want to underline it or highlight it for yourself. And the Domesday Book was a census. Census is CENSUS. A census of people, comma, manners, MANORS, which is basically like homes, property, manners, comma, and farm animals. Which allowed William to develop a system of taxation. So what he did is he set out officials to create a census. And a census is basically where you go around and you collect information of how many people you have in each household. A census in the United States is done every 10 years. And what it does is it helps track the growing size of cities, of towns, of counties, also that they can better regulate taxes and collect data and information as well. So you might see someone come to your home, or maybe you remember someone coming to your home, and they'll ask your family some questions. Or sometimes now, since it's a more automated system, they will leave them on, like the document in people's mail, or people can go online and fill it out. And it's beneficial because it helps give an accurate count of how many people live in our area. And William came up with that. And that was a very important change that has influenced how we do taxation even today. So those are some important things. So that's a turning point for English history. So let's talk about then how following generations are going to use their power over this growing kingdom now. So the next king that we want to talk about is Henry II. So this is for essential question 2. Let's write his name down, Henry II. So Henry, just like my last name, Henry. And then we're going to use the Roman numeral 2, which is basically II. And we're going to say expanded his power over the courts legal system. Over the court's legal system. And then let's put a semicolon. And then we'll put, he created a system of laws. He created a system of laws that were the same throughout the entire kingdom. Throughout the entire kingdom, known as common law. Known as common law. You might want to underline common law. So what he did is he decided to better unify England and keep them as one authority. He started to create laws that were universal throughout England. So that way, all the people were following the same laws, no matter what part of the growing kingdom you were living in. So that's very similar to, the organization that we use today, where we have a set of common laws, federal laws, that apply to everyone. So that's a significant change, and he denotes that. Now, Henry, what he is known for most in history was his tumultuous relationship with his friend Thomas à Becket. And what happened was Henry, being a pretty intelligent king, decided that a way to make himself more powerful was to have control over the leadership of the Catholic Church. And so what he did was he appointed his friend, Thomas à Becket, to the most powerful position in England's Catholic Church, which was to be the Archbishop. If you think back to that pyramid that we did, that hierarchy, archbishops were right underneath Pope. So he would be the most powerful person in England's Catholic Church hierarchy. So let's jot that down. So for our next bullet, we want to say Henry wants to have control over the Catholic Church. So he appoints his friend Thomas à Becket, and his name is here on the screen for you, Thomas à Becket, to be the Archbishop of Canterbury. The Archbishop of Canterbury. And Canterbury is the largest, most renowned church in England at this time. Okay, so let's put a semicolon. So, all well and good, put your friend in power so that you can kind of manipulate your friend to do what you want and still have control of the church. Well, like we know, uh, not everyone is always as easy to manipulate as they think. So, Thomas starts to kind of stand up to Henry and say, "Yeah, no, I understand you want things done your way, but the church really only can govern itself, and you can't tell the church what to do." And he basically stands up against Henry and tells him to, you know, you can't tell me what to do. And that is going to really aggravate Henry. So after the semicolon, we want to say Thomas tells Henry, Thomas tells Henry that only the church has power over itself. That only the church has power over itself. So basically, he's telling him, you can't tell me what to do. Sorry, the church is the only thing that can govern itself. Now, this is actually the root of struggles to come, especially in England, but just throughout Europe between the Catholic Church and the king, monarchies of many of these countries, where you have the person who is considered the most powerful figure in their country battling for power with the church, and who is, more powerful to the people. Are you going to listen to the people that have the connection to God, or are you going to listen to the king? And this is kind of an endless battle, but this is the first time that we kind of see it unfold here in English history. And so what happens then is Henry kind of makes a comment in front of his court where he kind of is like, I wish Becket was gone. He's, a thorn in my side, kind of making those comments. And four of his knights interpret this statement as him wanting Becket killed and out of his way. So they actually go and kill Becket. So if you're looking at the pictures right now, the one on the right is kind of a picture from this time, a drawing from this time, illustrating what happened, which is basically these four knights show up and murder a Becket. And so that is a huge stain on Henry's record, and he basically has to back down from this argument and try and, appease the public so that they're not so angry with him. So let's write that down. So for the next bullet, we want to write Henry expresses his desire. Henry expresses his desire to get rid of Becket, and four of his knights, and four, like the number of his knights, take that statement as an order and kill Becket. Take that statement as an order and kill Becket. And then the next bullet, the public is outraged, outraged, and force Henry and force Henry to back down. And force Henry to back down. So they basically make him publicly kind of atone for what he did, and also have to kind of give up this power struggle between him and the church. So I'm going to play you another video clip. This is kind of making light of the situation. This is from Horrible Histories, and they do a nice job illustrating these stories in a different way.
Hello and welcome to beautiful Canterbury, which is today readying itself for a royal visit from the King himself, Henry II. Now, we have been told that King Henry plans to visit the city's famous cathedral, which means that the royal party should be making its way down this very street any minute now. It seems like a tramp has wandered onto the King's parade route. Excuse me, mate. You need to clear off. You need to move off.
What?
The King is coming.
I am the king, you fool!
Oh my goodness, Your Majesty. Is this part of some new initiative to make the royal family seem more down to earth? If so, I think you might have taken it a bit too far.
Well, I did come all the way from London.
You walked from London?
Well, not all the way. I got a lift most of the way. But I did walk the last couple of miles in barefoot.
Why barefoot?
Well, as penance. For I have done a terrible thing. Well, if you include what I did on the roadside near Gillingham, 2 terrible things.
And what was the other terrible thing?
Well, I appointed my good pal Thomas Becket as Archbishop of Canterbury to sort of sort out my church problems. You know, man on the inside and all that.
Sounds like a clever plan.
Well, it wasn't. He started getting all religious and actually turned out to be a royal pain in the royal backside. Anyway, I got quite angry with him. Basically, the thing is, I have these idiot knights, you see. Oh, here they are. Sorry, late boss. Got lost on the ring road. There isn't a ring road.
Exactly, that's why we got lost.
And these must be the idiot knight, no offence.
That's all right, we get it all the time.
Yes, indeed. So anyway, I got in a right mood with Thomas Becket and made some flippant remark like, "Oh, who will rid me of this troublesome priest?" And guess what these geniuses did? Speak up.
Beat him to death.
To death.
I only asked them to put the frighteners on him, but what do? They beat him to death on the altar of Canterbury Cathedral, the holiest place in the whole of England.
I've said I'm sorry.
Are we going to do this now, Reg?
No, we're not.
Shush. So, to atone for the murder I unwittingly ordered, I had a shrine of Thomas built here at Canterbury, and I walked on a pilgrimage to pay respects to my murdered friend.
Wow, what a tragic story.
Did we find out who the idiot knights were?
Oh, no. Anyway, I've got to be on my way.
Oh, just a few more questions for our viewers.
I'm really
Your Majesty.
tired, actually.
No, it won't take 5 minutes.
Please, I've said no.
I'll be quick.
Look, who will rid me of this troublesome reporter?
Oh, we will.
Guys, I was joking. Done it again. You're fired.
To atone for his sins, Henry II was whipped by monkeys. No, that should be monks, sorry. Though a king being whipped by monkeys is a far funnier image.
All right, so that's from Horrible Histories, and they're from the BBC, and they do a nice job kind of illustrating those things. So as you can see, this is going to be a story that we're going to see more, where we see conflict between the church and the king, and that's going to be a common theme throughout this time period. So the last thing that we need to talk about is people looking for more rights during this time period. So our next king that we're going to talk about is King John. So under question 3, the first thing we want to talk about is, first bullet, English nobles. English nobles demanded more rights. English nobles demanded more rights and rebelled against the king's power by forcing King John, John, to sign a document of rights. Known as the Magna Carta. Which is in your question. And I would underline that for yourself. That's the important document that we're going to be talking about. So the nobility were upset with kind of their treatment and how they felt that the king was, forcing a lot of his authority onto them. So what they did is they decided, well, let's come up with a written document, because they had feudalism, but they decided, maybe we need something a little bit more substantial that outlines our rights. And so they outlined this document that they called the Magna Carta. And so let's talk about what that was. So for the next bullet, we're going to say the Magna Carta was a written document. Granting mutual rights. A written document granting mutual rights between the king and his vassals. So now we have a more locked in agreement, as opposed to feudalism, which was more of a negotiated, unwritten contract. So we have a written document locking in these rights. Now within this document, there were two substantial changes. The first was it gave more rights to the people, which is important. The other was it created a new body of their government, which allowed for the people to have more say in what was happening. Because back then it was just, the king made a law, that was the law. Well, they wanted to change that and give more authority to the people. So they created a body of government known as Parliament. So this is the next bullet. We want to write that term Parliament, which is up at the top of the screen, but I'll spell that for you as well. Capital PARLIAMENT, Parliament. And then we're going to write emerged as a governing body. Parliament emerged as a governing body composed of the people. So it took away some of the authority from the king. And it had, even today, two different components to it. It had what we call, the House of Lords. Which would have been made up of the nobility class, House of Lords, and the House of Commons, which would have been made up of the more lower classes, like the knights and the peasants and people like that. So it's giving authority back to the people. And Parliament still exists today. If you're looking at that picture, that's the Parliament building that's in London today. So, very substantial landmark and recognizable building. So that's significant. The other significant thing about the Magna Carta is it's also the model that our country used, our founding fathers used, when we were creating our document of rights known as the Bill of Rights. So let's write that down as the fourth bullet. So we want to say the Magna Carta is also significant is also significant because it was used as the model for the Bill of Rights. It was used as the model for the Bill of Rights by America's founding fathers. For the Bill of Rights by America's founding fathers. And if you look at the screen, those are the examples of the Bill of Rights, some of our early amendments to the Constitution, which give a lot of the basic freedoms that we hold dearly. So those were actually inspired by the Magna Carta in this document. So very significant document in English history as well as in our history as well. So what you should do now is, if you have these notes, you should finish up your web quest, finish up coloring your map, and any other work that you need to do for this class. When you're done with those things, you may work on something else quietly for the remainder of the period.